$2? Yeah.
All right, now here's something we think you'll really enjoy. This is Andrew. Andrew tells the story. I was a teenage psycho. Andrew, tell your story.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I want to tell you a story about when I was 17 years old in 1979. 3 Mile Island had just happened, which was a big nuclear accident in the United States. And this inspired me to become a no nukes protester. So I ran away from home, from my upper middle class house, and headed east first and then later west to go from one no nukes protest to another no nukes protest. And I ended up in Boulder, Colorado by happenstance. And the way that happened was I was on a Trailways bus on my way to California, actually. And my parents found out what bus I was on. I was in Denver. And they called these friends of theirs who lived in Denver. And they came and shanghaied me down at the Trailways bus station. And they took me back to their place in suburban Boulder. And they had a son whose name was Lon. And Lon was about 4 years older than me. And so he was, about 20 years old. And he said, well, why do you want to go to California? There's a really good anti-nuclear group here in Boulder. They're called the Rocky Flats Truth Force. And I said, well, I'd like to join them. Could you take me to show and introduce me? And he took me into town and he took me to the Rocky Flats Truth Force house. And I walked in, and there were a bunch of hippies sitting around on the living room floor, and they were passing a crystal the size of a pine cone between them. And one of them was an Indian with long braids and Indian dress, and I said, hey, I'm a no nukes protester, and I'm here to help the cause. And they said, how old are you? And I said, well, I'm 17. And they said, are you a runaway? And I said, yes. And they said, well, we're not so sure. You might be a liability, because the cops want to bust us. And I said, no, man, we'll be cool. And they said, okay, listen, it's $20 to live in the house. That's 3 vegetarian meals a week. No meat in the house. And then you got to do 20 hours of work a week for the cause. And I said, cool. And they said, okay, well, we have a teepee on the railroad tracks that lead into the Rocky Flats nuclear weapons facility where they build plutonium triggers. And we need somebody to find us a heater because it's cold. And I said, I can do that. And I went out and I went to the Army-Navy store downtown and I asked them if they would donate a heater to us, and they said, sorry, can't help you. And I went around the rest of Boulder to 5 or 6 different stores asking if they would donate a heater. Nobody would. And then finally at a second Army-Navy store, this guy said, yeah, sure, I'll donate a heater. Here you go. So I went back to the Rocky Flats Truth Force house, and I was really proud, and I showed them the heater, and they pointed out that it didn't have a mantle. It was missing a part, and the thing never did fucking work. So then I went out to the tracks with them, and I slept in the teepee, which was right on the railroad tracks that led into the bomb plant. And I was there, and there was this guy who called himself Ram Krishna. And Ram Krishna was this really skinny guy, and he said, oh, let's take off all our clothes, and we'll lay beneath the blankets, and if the mood strikes us, we can make love. And the women were like, come on, Ram Krishna, he does this all the time. They were like, no way. And so we smoked a joint, and we went to sleep, and then later, they told me that they were going to kick me out because I wasn't able to come up with the $20 a week for the meals. So I said, well, I'll get a job. And they said, good, go get a job. And so I went to McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and nobody was hiring. And then finally, the Red Barn hired me, and I flipped burgers. And even though I was a vegetarian, the burgers smelled succulent to me. And I got a bucket of chicken that they gave me because it was going to be thrown out. And I went back to the Rocky Flats Truth Force house with my bucket of chicken, and I was really proud I was going to donate it. And they got really upset with me because I brought meat into the house. And the Indian guy, whose name was Blackhawk made me go out in the backyard and bury the chicken. Back to Mother Earth, he said. So all of a sudden one day, there was Black Hawk came running through the house. He said, it's on, there's an action. And we jumped in a microbus and we went out to the tracks. And this was a time that was well known when the train was going to come through with the raw uranium. And we always had people who were going to get arrested. So there were 6 of them that day, and they chained themselves to the railroad tracks. And I didn't chain myself because I was afraid to get arrested and sent back to Moline, Illinois, my hometown. And the cops came in, and they were directed by an FBI agent, and it was just kind of a dance. And we sang, and we chanted, and we did protest songs. And the 6 people got arrested, and they cut the chains off, and they carted them away. And then all the Jefferson County cops left, and then we put the teepee back up, and it started all over again. And then one day, I was at the Rocky Flats Truth Force house, and I was talking to this guy. His name was Kabir, or he called himself Kabir. He was an ex-sailor. And he said, you know, there's this place down on Arapahoe where they have isolation chambers, and it's the coolest thing, man. You go and you lay in the salty water. It's like the Dead Sea. And your nervous system gets tricked, and your body thinks it's not, your mind is not in your body, and your mind just floats, man, and you're like in outer space. And he said, I dropped some acid about an hour before I go, and it's just like really totally cool. And I was like, man, that sounds so great, but you know, I can't afford the $5 an hour for the isolation tank, but I'd love to drop some acid. Could you give me some acid? And he said, yeah, sure, man. And the next day, he brought me this blotter acid. And it had a design on it, like a coat of arms. And I thought, you know, that's cool. And he said, well, when are you going to take it? And I said, well, now, of course, you know. And so I took it. And then he saw me a few minutes later, and he said, what did you do with the other 3 hits? I said, what other 3 hits? He said, you didn't take the whole thing, did you? And I said, yeah. He said, dude, that's 1,000 mics. You just took a 4-way. I was like, oh, shit. So I didn't know what to do. So Black Hawk and Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna was really kind of gay, I guess, and he put his arms around me and he said he could feel my 3rd chakra getting warm. And they said, you know what, we'll be your guides tonight, and we'll take you on your trip, and we'll guide you, and we'll make sure you're safe. And I said, great. And so we went downtown, and as we got downtown, there was a river, and we walked along the river, and they said, okay, now run, David. That was my birth name. It is my birth name, David. And they said, run. And then they said, okay, now skip. And then they had me hop like a bunny. And I didn't realize they were making fun of me, but they were just toying with me. And as I ran, I couldn't feel the exertion of my body. I could feel my heart beating, and I could tell I was moving fast, and I was breathing hard, but I couldn't feel any exertion. It was like I was floating on top of my own body. And then I started to see tracers and lights and everything. So then they got hungry and they wanted to go to the Jolly Roger. So we went to the Jolly Roger, and we were sitting there and we were ordering, and I looked up at the waitress, and she was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my life. And I said, I thought to myself, I thought, God, she's so gorgeous, she's so beautiful. I've never seen a more beautiful woman in all my life. If only she could be my girlfriend. And we ordered food, and I got a grilled cheese, and later the guys asked me, they said, you know, why did you say that to the waitress out loud, right to her face? And I said, you can hear my thoughts? I didn't realize I was speaking. I thought I was just thinking. So then they took me back to the Truth Force house, and they sat me down. This is like 6 hours later, and I'm still tripping hard. And they sat me down, and they gave me some paper and a pen, and they told me to write a journal. And so they went to bed, and I sat there, and I watched the refrigerator, first the white paint of the refrigerator melt away to silver steel, and then the silver steel right in the middle went like molten lava, and then the refrigerator just melted into the floor, and the floor became a river. And I looked at the wood of the table I was sitting at, and I could see the molecules moving within the wood. And then I looked at my hand, and I could see the blood flowing in my veins. And I put my hand on my arm, and my arm melted into my hand, and my hand melted into my arm. And then I started to write my journal, and I still have this journal to this day. And I wrote, I am Today I am. That's all I wrote. So the next morning, I woke up, and I was still up. I was up all night, and Lon Jr. came and picked me up, and I had this epiphany that I had to go home now and make up with my parents. So they flew me back to Moline, Illinois, and they had me see a psychiatrist, and he diagnosed me as bipolar, and they put me in the psycho ward. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.